Senior Events Specialist for the Office of the Chief Diversity Officer and Operations Manager for the Diversity Leadership Council, an advisory group to President Daniels and Johns Hopkins leadership, made up of roughly 50 individuals from across the institutions. The Diversity Innovation Grants, also known as DIG, is one of our most exciting initiatives because it allows people from the Johns Hopkins community to submit their ideas for projects related to diversity and inclusion here at Hopkins and beyond. Such projects include interrogating identity, power and privilege at Hopkins, and beyond the binary, understanding gender as a spectrum. And today, I have the pleasure of welcoming all of you to the ribbon cutting for Women of Hopkins, an altogether artistic, historical, and inclusive endeavor in a society where the achievements of men all too often overshadow the heroism, the spark, and the ingenuity of our female peers. I'm thrilled to see the walls of our campus literally splashed with the stories of the phenomenal women from our past. One of the things I really love about this project is the fact that it strikes up a connection with everyone who walks by it. It transforms our walls into bridges that connect the trailblazers of the past to our students, the architects of our future. And with that, I would like to welcome up President Daniels, who has been a tremendous support to the DLC and the Diversity Innovation Grants and has been instrumental in pushing our work forward since the launch of the grants program several years ago. Thank you.
It's so great. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you, Erin, and thank you to everyone for being here to formally launch this just really wonderful installation. Women who are of Hopkins. Some who are educated here, some who have made their academic and professional homes here, all whose ideas, advocacy, and vision have changed their fields, the world in which we live, and importantly, our institution for the better. We have only to look at the dominant media discourse this past week to understand viscerally that this public and visible celebration of remarkable talent could not come at a better moment. That was my slightly veiled reference to our current electoral environment, and I will move on. But I think the moment is really a propitious one. And I thought immediately of a story of one of our Hopkins women, one that the national press also deemed worthy of covering. It was the day that Dr. Christine Ladd Franklin received her PhD from our institution in 1926, a full 44 years after she was the first woman to complete the qualifying exams for her degree, decades after she contributed measurably to the fields of psychology, mathematics, and logic. It was a day long overdue. Even more amazing than the awarding of a PhD that would get ink in major publications is the thought that some commentators would deal unabashedly with the inherent bias of the delay in 1926. As a Baltimore Sun columnist captured in a rhetorical question at the time, is Johns Hopkins University now conferring an honor upon Mrs. Christine Ladd Franklin, or is Mrs. Christine Ladd Franklin conferring an honor on Johns Hopkins University? I think we well know the answer to that question, but it is important to say it loudly and clearly. We know that in recognizing the women of Johns Hopkins, past and present, we are not so much honoring them, rather we are celebrating the honor that they have done to us by being part of our community. With this project, we are broadcasting visibly and widely the stories and accomplishments of the women featured here and others in time, in the belief that this simple act will weave these stories more deeply into the daily fabric of university's life and be a daily reminder of possibilities for those who follow in their footsteps. And I'm delighted that it emerged in true Hopkins fashion from the grassroots efforts of individuals who recognized a need and galvanized a collaborative solution to meet it. And now I'd like to turn the program over to Janine Haynes and Dr. Karen Fleming, Professor of Biophysics, to lead us in dedicating this project. Again, thank you for being here.
Greetings. My name's Karen Fleming. I'm a professor in the T.C. Jenkins Department of Biophysics here at the Homewood campus. I am so delighted that all of you came out here today to celebrate with us the official ribbon cutting and opening of our art exhibit entitled Women of Hopkins. I am here speaking on behalf of a core team of dedicated individuals who put this exhibit together, and I just want to take an opportunity to introduce them. So Dominique Scalise, Dominique, would you please stand? Dominique is a graduate student in the Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering, and he has played an especially important and lead role in this project. He's been the creative force behind the scenes. He's persistently working to find consensus with all the various offices here on campus, and he really made this project happen. Our team also includes another graduate student from Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering, Anna Coughlin, and unfortunately she could not be here today, as well as Professor Jeff Gray from the same engineering department, and he's actually not here because he's at a conference on women in computing. We're joined by Janine Haynes, Director of Gender Equity, and Valerie Hartman, an instructional designer at JHMI. Valerie, would you please stand? And Valerie edited each and every one of the biographies that can be read on the digital site, so the links are on these panels. We are additionally honored to have here in person one of our Women of Hopkins. Gail Kelly. Gail, would you please stand? Gail was a student at Hopkins in the early 1970s, and she was one of Hopkins' first black female undergraduates, and she went on to have an influential career creating rays of hope for women with HIV by providing services to the Baltimore community. So our group is a grassroots effort to raise awareness about bias and barriers facing women in male-dominated fields. So we focused mainly on the STEM areas, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But as you can see from the art exhibit behind me and across the courtyard, and actually over there also, this project celebrates the accomplishments of women, not only from science, but also medicine, business, music, and government. And you might be thinking, isn't it odd that 3 engineers and a biophysicist put together an art exhibit? But regardless of the field that you're in, visualization is a powerful force for success, and it can be a motivator for change. And now, more than ever, images are everywhere. On television, on billboards, in magazines, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. They even magically appear on your phone several times a day, right? And because images have become so ingrained as a currency of communication, they carry with them enormous power to shape our ideas about people, their hopes, and their dreams. Images have this special superpower because they influence the stereotypes we all carry about who we are and who we can become. Unfortunately, most commercials and a lot of television use images that reinforces gender stereotypes of women as only nice and nurturing and deferential. Whereas men are portrayed as strong and decisive leaders and thinkers. But studies show that neither intelligence, nor leadership, nor creativity are traits disproportionately owned by one gender over another. So when we wrote our diversity grant application, our motivation was to find a way to highlight the heroines in male-dominated fields and to challenge the societal stereotypes attributed to women. So I just want to paraphrase from the application. It begins, "We need heroes, pioneers who blaze trails and inspire us to follow in their footsteps. However, in traditionally male-dominated fields, the heroes we hear about most often are men. Albert Einstein, Louis Pasteur, Teddy Roosevelt, John D. Rockefeller. Where are the role models who demonstrate that capability is not correlated to gender? Countless women who have changed the world were molded right here at Hopkins, but many of us do not even know who they are." This was the genesis of our exhibit, Women of Hopkins. By bringing together images of these accomplished women and by projecting their extraordinary success stories, we hope to encourage the next generation, irrespective of field. The barriers faced by many of these women were kind of unbelievable as we learned about them, and they could easily have prevented their success. So, for example, Dr. Florence Bascom, a noted geologist who's behind me here, and the first woman to receive a PhD from Hopkins, was forced to sit behind a screen while attending classes so as not to disturb the male students. Dr. Maria Gephardt-Mayer, a winner of the 1963 Nobel Prize in Physics, was hardly paid for her 9 years of work here at the university and was declined the use of an empty office and instead was made to perform her experiments in an attic. This is in the 1930s. Dr. Bernadine Healy, who was the first female director of the National Institutes of Health, completed her residency in cardiology at the JHU School of Medicine, and she had to fight to shut down a play put on by an all-male club on campus that depicted her as a sexually explicit character. Among the battles we face as women today are deeply rooted societal stereotypes and the associated consequences in the classroom and in the professional workplace. Unconscious bias, a lack of diversity, a failure of inclusiveness, pervasive microaggression, sexual harassment, the absence of community. These are all hurdles still to be overcome. We, the community, both women and men, must face these challenges together because we are all participants in and vulnerable to society's stereotypes. After all, each of us is limited to a single perspective that is shaped by where we came from. And so that means we all have our own version of a biased worldview. Role models are a way forward. When any of us see leaders in our fields who look like us, the experience fundamentally changes our pictures of success. This is the positive power of imagery. It ever so gently nudges our biases. For girls and young women, heroines like the Women of Hopkins expand their horizons and give them confidence to dream that they themselves can and will someday be one of them. This is the hope of our group, that shining light on the images and accomplishments of these women will inspire the next generation of women scientists, medical doctors, engineers, musicians, diplomats, community activists, writers, thinkers, and leaders. Thank you. Now I turn the podium to Janine Haynes.
Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you all for being here today. It's a beautiful sight from where I'm standing, for sure. Before we cut the ribbon to officially launch this extraordinary art exhibit, I too want to thank you for coming out today. My name is Janine Haynes. I'm the Director for Gender Equity here at Hopkins, and I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of the collaborative effort that has brought us together at this moment. And there is no better time than this moment, than the present, to get excited and encouraged about what these women represent for us. So our slogan in our campaign awareness for this is know them, join them. And we cannot encourage you enough to know more about them, to go to our website, women.jhu.edu, and click on one of these women's, all of these women's pictures, read their bios, listen to their TED Talks, and know their stories as students who carried around bags and backpacks around this university, and as agents of change. We also cannot encourage you enough to join them, to come into Manton Courtyard and sit among them, to join them in spirit, and to be energized by their presence. Nothing would be more exciting for us than to invite many of these women to campus in March during Women's History Month, so that we can literally join them in conversation, reflection, and celebration. So we ask that you support our initiatives to have them join us here on campus in 2017. For who better to remind our students? Students, it is your turn to push past the messages of our society that aim to limit your potential. It is your turn to set goals for yourself that will blow people's minds. It is your turn to be courageous and creative in your academic fields. To the women of this university who strive ahead against any and all odds, we are rooting for you. And we cut this ribbon for you today. Thank you.
We're going to count or something. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6,